Now, there is a new doomsday cult which is headed towards Australia. I say doomsday cult because it's not just about climate activism. These are people who believe, and remember, if you're part of a doomsday cult, you believe that any action you take to bring people's attention to the sin that you believe is being committed is okay. Now, this doomsday cult has not gone as far as physically injuring people, and thank goodness that's not the case. But we know about the Extinction Rebellions and the climate protesters who tried to disrupt the Swedish version of Dancing with the Stars, except that person got a knock on the noggin from a cameraman who I don't believe is particularly political, just keen to make sure that the show was about dancing, not about politics. Well, get ready for the new version of those that are more pure than you and I. We turn to the UK, who were first to report on these lunatics.
In the dead of night, Clifton in Bristol. Nothing much stirs at this hour except for the foxes and at 2 a.m. the tyre extinguishers. Setting off to disable every 4x4 or SUV they can find.
Oh, that sweet sound is climate justice. The group is called Tyre Extinguishers, their website, which you can go and read and laugh at if you want. And no doubt they will be oh so happy that we're talking about it on national television here in Australia. It's called tyreextinguishers.com. We are defending ourselves. And after they deflate someone's tyres, they leave a little note on your car to tell you that, well, you deserve it.
We need emergency action to reduce emissions immediately. We're taking actions into our own hands because our governments and politicians will not.
Oh, these people, so sanctimonious. Now, when confronted by the reporter, they don't care that someone may need, for whatever emergency reason, to run out to their car and use it.
You could be interfering with a life and death situation doing this, couldn't you?
They said they accept that's a possibility, but added in the grand scale of things, the climate crisis will kill billions of us if we carry on as we are.
Got to hide their identities, but I'm glad they're wearing masks. Monique Ryan will be very happy. Put your mask on, put your mask on. Well, you would think this was the moment in time where I'd show you the part where the reporter turns around and says, well, I don't really agree that this is the right thing to do, given all of the obvious consequences of denying people the capacity to have transport, to get to work, get to emergencies, get to whatever it is that they need to do. Oh, no, 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 no. This is oh so woke UK TV.
Their actions will enrage many, but the science is clear, whatever you think of their methods. Last year, the International Energy Agency made a finding which stunned their own researchers. SUVs were the second largest cause of the global rise in carbon dioxide emissions over the past decade.
Why am I talking about this? Why am I mentioning this before we get to everything else? And we'll get to everything else in a second. Because they're coming to Australia. News.com.au, the Daily Mail and plenty of others have started to notice that this group is expecting to have an impact on the streets of Sydney, Melbourne and the country towns in the middle of the night. And again, the reason I mentioned this at the start of the show is not to give any attention, but to point out that it's a grey area about whether what they are doing is illegal or not. So a simple message, if you have the opportunity to talk to your local council, your local state member, maybe you mention to them, could you pass a law to make it very clear that letting down somebody else's tyres is illegal? Obviously not mechanics, they're allowed to do it. Obviously not people that are changing tyres, obviously not roadside assistance. But how is this not an act of vandalism? The same act of vandalism that if they did this to your windows of your house, there would be a consequence. You'd be able to use the footage from your cameras, which are oh so often around Australian houses these days, and maybe, just maybe, try and hold somebody accountable. But of course, we live in a country where, remember, climate action is already tacitly approved of by our courts. Remember the girl who decided to, they identify as non-binary, decided to strap themselves to a steering wheel holding up traffic in the middle of Sydney. Well, the charges, of course, were completely removed against her. Why? Because she had trauma about the floods that had taken place in Lismore. So when you have a media who doesn't think this is wrong, and you have a court system who don't think this is wrong, the only thing that is left is for the parliaments to turn around and say, hey, I get it, I get your point, but sorry, you can't do this to people. Because God forbid in the middle of the night you need to use your car to quickly get to hospital because someone's about to have a baby, or you need to go to work so you can feed the rest of your family, or You just don't need these pests around you. But pests they are, and pests are on their way with way too many people cheering them on.